Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Art of Creation Show. I'm your host, Rebecca Boswell, and we will be looking at how choice creates. That choice creates and different possibilities for creating a life and a living that can actually work for you. And today we have the pleasure of speaking with Cory Michelle. She is a unicorn of magnitude. She facilitates all kinds of magical tools from all different places, including the tools of access consciousness. She has a specialty class that she delivers all around the world, inviting people to live their crazy possible life and bringing to them all the possibilities of the art of living crazy possible, among other things. And so, Cory, today we're so grateful. I'm so grateful to have you here today for this conversation. So you think you want success? Dun dun dun. So, Cory, welcome to the show. And success, like, what is that even anyway? There's a weird thing about success, and are you sure that anyone is really willing to ever truly choose it?
That's a great question. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I love the art of creation and so happy that you're bringing this to the world, by the way. Yeah, success, like we always, I mean, we talk about it, right? Like, what is success anyway? But also, like, I want to be successful and I want to have success with money and I want to have more YouTube views and I want to have more whatever it is, ... right? But then there's all the stuff that we're judging success is and isn't. And then also, right, like, what are we unwilling to do or be to actually have success? Yeah. Right? So
yeah, I get it.
So many things wrapped up in all that.
It's kind of like, you know, when we talk about success, it's like people define success by all the things that they don't have and that they haven't created yet. So it's like everywhere that someone perceives a deficit in their world, it's like, okay, well then the epitome of success would be the opposite of everything that I've judged about myself, right? So is success ever really real or possible? Because can you ever really get to this thing outside of yourself if you're always going to be judging what it is, and it's always kind of based on what you don't have and can't be? Like, is it even achievable?
Well, yeah, right. That's the question of the century, right? Well, I love Gary Douglas's definition of success, right? He says, if I contribute to one person, then I'm a success. Because success is based on your definition of success, your measuring stick of success. So where's your measuring stick? Is it somewhere that's unattainable or you've decided is unattainable? Or are you choosing to be a success because you woke up in the morning, right? Yeah. So if you get that out of the way, then what can you create? What can you be? What can you choose? What can you facilitate in the world? Or whatever your agenda is. Right? Yeah, I took that on because I was like, if I can inspire one person a day, I'm a success. Right? And that's like, oh, that's easy. So I'm like, okay, good. Got that out of the way. Now what can I create? Now what can I be?
Yeah, because it's almost this thing of, I mean, success really has this energy of, am I valuable? Or like, did I do it? You know, like, do I get the gold star? Do I not get the gold star? And yet what you're really pointing at is something that kind of is bigger than success. It's actually like being a contribution, you know, that the story of the starfish, right? And the woman on the beach with thousands of starfish and, you know, taking one and throwing it in and going to the next, and the child coming and saying, you know, what are you doing? There's no way you could possibly throw all of these starfish back. And she says, oh yes, but to the ones that I do, it matters. And so, like, that's what I hear you saying is like, okay, so if I didn't have this thing that I used as sort of a cattle prod to get me to do something and be something and achieve something, and I just like measured, right? Because it's really a measurement. And so if I just was like, well, just by being, okay, check, I get the gold star. Now you don't have all these other limitations and things that you now have to judge yourself against to see whether or not you're good or not good, or, you know, successful or not successful. So Yeah, so cool. So what is then, if we're actually looking at something that is beyond success, like what can we tap in there? What can we tap into? So for people who have always been chasing success, or, asking for success, or wishing, hoping, dreaming about, one day this great success, um, I can't help but pour out reference if it's there. What is possible there that we can start to perceive, so we can actually start shifting and changing the energies that we're choosing as we are creating in the world.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a great question. Because if you've got the judgment stick off, because the judgment stick is usually based on this reality, first of all, what's successful in this reality, the money, the number of YouTube video, like views, the whatever the
The metrics.
The metrics of your success, right? So if you get those out of the way, then you can actually be aware of what's possible. But when you've got those markers in your space, it's like you have to function from the linearity of this reality. So if I get 1 million views on my YouTube channel, or if I make $1 million, then this is what's happening. So that's where we're in that sort of a reality. That if this, then that reality. But what happens is that's a tunnel vision, right? So then you're not actually going, well, wait a second, what actually is possible here? If we take the judgments off, what could the universe actually show me? And because I create with the universe, right? So every time I ask a question, I'm actually being aware for the awareness that matches that question. So the universe will give you all sorts of awarenesses that don't match your judgments, that don't match your points of view, as you know, right? So if you have that point of view of this is what success is, then you're going to miss these other awarenesses that don't match that will actually create what you're really asking for.
So I can just hear all the people watching that are like, well, how do I not have a point of view about something? Or how do I not think something? Like, how do I even know what I'm thinking, right? So for people who are new to this conversation, what are some of the ways that they can start to kind of wait, what am I perceiving? Wait, what am I thinking? Wait, what is my point of view here? What are some ways that they can start to have more of that awareness so that they can consciously choose?
Yeah, so one of the things that I did for myself, because I'm what I would call a head tripper. I was trained myself. I had a lot of value in being right and getting things right in life, because I thought that if you got everything right, then you would be successul. Yeah. Then I would be out of all of my money problems, and then I would be able to be a contribution to the world, because that's all I really ever wanted. And everything I ever did was for that. But I thought it was around people pleasing and hitting targets and marks and whatever, goals. So one of the things I did was I actually just made a list. I said, okay, so what are all of my points of view about success? What do I think I need to accomplish? What do I think I need in order to be successful or happy or free? What is it that's in my head? What are all my points of view? And then I just kept asking myself, what else is in there? And then, okay, well, if I make the $1 million, then what? And if I, where am I putting pressure on myself? And so I just made a list of it, and I actually did some clearing work on it. So I used the Access Consciousness clearing statement. I just energetically said, you know what? I'm not going to choose those as my measures anymore. And did they still come up in my world? Yeah, for a while. But because I was conscious now of them, I said, aha, you sneaky little point of view, you are in my way. That is not what I want to choose anymore. What else is possible here? What is it that I'm really interested in? And what I did was I figured out for myself is that I'm not a thing person, having a nice car and a nice house. Those things don't really light me up. They don't really have me create. Experiences do, and energies do. Right? So if I could catch an energy of something, whether it's a car or a house, but it's not the car or the house, it's the energy. So if I catch the energy of something, I'm like, ooh, I'll have that. Then I will create like a mofo so I can have that energy. So I figured out for myself is that If I start asking for the energies of what I would like to have my life be like, then it's really easy for me to get out of my head, because my head is not energies.
Yeah.
My head is all the reasons, the justifications. See, I have to do this and I have to prove this,
Yeah.
and I don't want to be judged here. And if I do this, then everybody's going to like me. That's all the head stuff. You know it's head stuff because you have words for it. The energy stuff is just like it just draws you in. It's like you can feel it in your body. It expands you. So when I started going, oh, okay, I would identify something and go, oh, that's that thing. Like, I think I need to have these views on my videos. And I don't know why I keep using that, probably because it's in my world right now, because I'd like to have more views on my videos too.
Well, I mean, if we all work together, how many views can we get on this video? Let's just blow it out of the water.
Let's just watch it 1,000,000 times each, and then we'll
refresh. If we all do that, all of you at home, then we'll have a party.
Right, we'll just be contributing to each other with our fingers and watching. But what I started to notice was like, okay, so when the more dense thing came from my head, then I'd go, ooh, that's what that is. I would say, hello, goodbye, and then literally like return it back to wherever it came from, because it was usually not ever from me anyway. I was picking them up from everywhere else to try to get this reality right. Yeah. So
and that's where it's all that figuring it out stuff. That's like, I'm going to stay in my house for 10 years to make the perfect thing so that I can then go be in the world. And trying to figure out what that perfect thing is, which by the time you leave your house, like, you know, you've made the perfect cell phone, but like they don't even use cell phones anymore, right? So yeah, like all those places where we're really trying to figure it out and really looking just from our brain's perspective of, okay, well, what's the perfect thing? How can I be the perfect person? How can I get it right? How can I get all the pieces together? And what I'm hearing you say is actually just go out in the world, be in the world, and receive the information that is available. And you can actually, from right here, begin creating what it is it's actually going to bring you the energies and well, not only bring the energies, but really turn up everywhere that you're already aware of those energies in your world, to have even more of them. And then to begin to see where, even in more subtle ways, they are showing up around you. And now you can choose all kinds of things that maybe before you didn't even, you didn't even see, because you just weren't even, you were kind of looking here. And then it opens up all these other different possibilities. So, so making that shift, so you were a head tripper, and you were in this kind of figuring out place with the metrics and how do I get from here to here, and then one day I'll magically be happy, right? I mean, I know from your story, like you have an amazing story of like all these places where you so tried to get it right that things were not working at all. And then now it's like you took this whole thing and you flipped it and flopped it, and you've created and generated so much with playing and with following the energy that you're talking about and following what was light for you. So can you speak to us a little bit more about that? And you've already kind of started to talk about it, but like, tell us a little bit more about, right? You were in this place and it was like, okay, things, there has to be something else. And then as you began playing with these tools, like at what point did you really get, oh, okay, like there's no turning back. Like this is a totally different ball game.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, what's funny is I think that the no turning back actually happened before I found it, was because there was the access consciousness tools that really changed it. So I was already in this space of go, right? But I was using everything sort of against myself. And then the things that I got from the access tools and the classes and also facilitating that material was the flip of, okay, the push and the force and which is coming from the head, right? Of all your agendas and all of your points of view and things like that isn't the way I create. I create based on energy, and those are the tools I learned with the access stuff, right? So So I think it was my demand before, because what I was doing is, well, what I realized is that I wanted the magic, and that's what was missing. I had the vision, I had the possibilities, I had the smarts, I had like so much, but I didn't have that magic. And the magic was based in the energy, right? It was based in this coming out of my head and into the question, and actually working with the energy, which I mean, everybody else was trying to get, you know, teaching me how to do it from my head, right? Which validated all of my, you know, trying to get it right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I get it. Yeah. And I know you're the only person who's ever gone through that. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear about your
Yeah, I'm
story.
in the support
I'm
group
glad
as
you got
well.
out of it. Yeah. So in our last episode, we had Diva Diaz here, who you also know. And a lot of what we were talking about is, you know, what is it? Like, what is it about you that is actually a capacity? You know, what are you capable of that, you know, that historically has been something that has been a judgeable offense, or even maybe a disability. And so it's like, you know, what I hear you talking about here is where there was this moment. Well, I mean, I say this moment because it's easy to talk about it that way. And I get it sort of occurs in this like amorphic
Lots of
way.
moments.
Right? Lots of moments put together that we will put into one very convenient little moment. But there, you know, like at some point, there is this moment where it's like, oh, something has changed. And so when you look at that, like, was there sort of a place where you really got that this shift had occurred, and that you were like, oh my gosh, this is where I would normally head trip, and I just chose something different. And so what was that like when you were in that place of just starting to acknowledge that you really were capable of something entirely different than you had been choosing?
Mhm.
And you know what, you know, for anybody who's in that place now where they're like, yeah, there might be, like, I might have a little something, right? Like, what can we speak to that, to now really turn that up?
Mhm. Gosh, there's so many points. So the one that's really bright and shiny in my world right now is there was a Access Consciousness does all these classes around the world, right? So there was a 7-day class which I wanted to go to really bad, like really bad, in New Zealand. And the first time it came around, I missed it because I didn't have enough money, because money was my thing that I had to change, that like has created more consciousness in my world. And then the second year came around, guess what? Money had changed for sure, but I didn't have an extra like 8-10 grand to go do this class in New Zealand. So third year comes around and I'm like, I'm not missing it this time. Like, I'm not going to do that to myself again, because I knew that I could create that, but there was this back door for me that I could go, oh, I didn't make the money. And then what would ensue was judgments about myself, right? You did it again. You can't do that. You're not good with money. You didn't save. You didn't do it, you know, because everybody would have said, well, if you need $8,000 to do something, you should save it. And you should, you know, if you start now, it's just $200 a month or whatever.
Right.
But that's not the way I function at all. Like, you want to tell me to put $100 a week away? I'm not going to do it. Tell me all you want. It's not going to happen. And so I always thought I was wrong for that, and how random I am with money, and how completely irrational I am with money. And then I actually, like, before that event said, you know what? I'm not choosing what I've always chosen. I'm going to create this. No matter what it takes, I'm going to actually do this. I'm going to create this. And I said, you know, whatever it takes, what energies can I be? What can I create so I can have this? And that's a brilliant question I always ask, is what can I create so that I can have that? And it wasn't that I wanted to go to New Zealand. I mean, I did want to go to New Zealand because I'd never been, but it was the energy of what my future would be like having been to that class. And that class changed my entire life, because the class was actually called From Crazy Impossible to Crazy Possible.
Yes, I remember. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which was the spawn of pretty much everything that I'm doing now. So it was like my demand for myself to be there, but it was that like, you know what, I have to be willing to have a whole different way of relating to myself, because if I create that, I can no longer have the story and the judgment that I can't do it.
Yeah. So everything we choose, it actually either, yeah, because every time we choose something that is reliant on what we've chosen before and what's shown up in the past, we're just perpetuating whatever that's been in the past. And we're just proving that that is true.
Yeah.
And what you did was you looked and you said, okay, so that may have been true for me at some point, and I may have perpetuated that for however long, and it stops now. And now, from this moment, what do I choose? And then you just, you begin choosing, you just really chose your future. It's so cool. Choice creates just a little bit.
In a way that like, and you can't, this is stuff you can't predict. When you follow the energy and what I was asking for, and I don't even remember at that point what I was asking for, but one of the things, now that I'm saying it, that I was asking for was actually to have ease with creation and with creating money, right? Like since I had gotten to a place where I was like, okay, I'm actually like, now I have my head above water a little bit. I'm not drowning all the time. Now it's time I want to actually soar. And that was that real big, it was for me in that space, it was a big leap of faith to even think that I could not have money problems anymore, right? Not create, big money poo pies for myself. And so I ended up creating, it was like $8,000 in a matter of, I don't know, 10 days or something like that, which for me was holy crazy. And then when I got to the event, I made another 12 grand, totally unexpectedly. And I was like, holy cow. And I got in the class, I got up to the mic and I was like, Gary,
I owe you $1.
I owe you $1. I owe him lots of dollars. I've given him lots of dollars too. But I said, I can no longer validate the story that I'm bad with money. I said, that's not even true anymore. For me to be here was complete invalidation that I am bad with money and that I can't do it. And I said, I'm not buying that story anymore.
Yeah.
And that was a huge turning point for me.
I was going to say, and I bet that he said, I'm sorry.
As usual.
Yeah.
As usual, because he gives us so many amazing tools and things that seem sometimes so unbelievable, but when you just go, well, wait a second, let me play with that, and then boom, everything changes. You're like, holy cow, like everything you ever thought was real, like all the places you thought you were successful, but all the places you thought you were not successful, what if those aren't even real? They're like a house of cards.
Yeah.
Where it's like, none of that even matters. None of that's even real. What do you want to choose now?
Yeah.
What would you really like now? What really calls to you now?
Yeah.
Right?
And now. And now. And that, right? That thing of like, I love that piece of there being an expiration date. An expiration on every single thought, feeling, emotion, choice, like everything. Like even a choice has an expiration. In 10 seconds, choose again. In 10 seconds, choose again. You want to choose the same thing? Cool. And if it's not working, then what else? So you're constantly born again. Hallelujah. Amen. So you went from creating, because you've been creating your whole life. I mean, I just know from your personal story that you were creating different businesses and creating all kinds of things. So creating was never an issue. And then what you're saying here is all of a sudden you made this demand, this choice, a demand in your universe of like I commit to myself. You closed the back door. You said, okay, no more escape hatch. Like I'm going to really just, no matter what shows up, I'm going to keep choosing to create greater and follow that energy of what I am becoming, what I'm asking for, what I desire. And then you had this place where, again, there was another huge shift. And now not only just were you creating, you were also starting to bring in these energies of generation, which I know you've talked about. Can you talk to us a little bit about the energies of creation and generation? And so what is this when we start bringing generation energies into our creations? What is that?
So the generation energies are like, to me at least, they're generative energies. They're the ones that feed whatever it is that you've got going on. So if you're the one that's pushing it, that's not generative, right? If you're coming from points of view, conclusions, forcing it, pushing, like this has got to happen, that's not generative. What generative is when you're going and you have other energies that are supporting you, so there's more ease, right? So there's like this, like the universe is contributing to you, so to speak,
Yeah.
right? Or wherever that other energy is coming from. It's also like the generative energies of what you choose. So for example, for me, you want to put me doing accounting work, I'm gonna fucking fall asleep. It's not giving me energy. It's not giving me life. It's not whatever. Now, if you have me facilitate, I will facilitate for freaking hours on end without a break. That's generative. It gives me energy, right? So if you and your business are choosing things that you are generative, like are generative for you, then that can be a huge contribution to the generation of your business. But so much of the time we get into things and we're like, oh, well, if I want to do this, then I have to do and be this, which isn't actually generative for you. And that's where your brilliance is. So whatever gives you, and this is actually what I got from a different 7-day, was when you choose things that are generative for you and you start to become aware of those things, where after you do them, you're lit up. You're like, wow, I feel even better. Or you could do something all day long, or lots of different things. And if you're in that energy and you have more energy at the end of the day than being exhausted, that's generative, right? So whatever it is, and everybody is totally different. Everybody's wired totally differently. So when you start to ask, and this is actually a question that changed my life, is when I acknowledged that facilitating was actually generative for me, I said, okay, what's it going to take to facilitate more? That one question of asking for more of that generative energy changed everything. And that's when I realized that I could actually start a business doing facilitation, right? Because that was not what I was going to do. I had a whole nother plan in my head.
Yeah, your head had a plan, and it turns out that, yeah, our plans are really cute. Yeah.
My plan was a not really great plan. But with that generation part of if you're choosing to choose generative things in your world, and choosing things that are contributing to your businesses, your life, your relationships, it's giving it energy. That's like a sign from the universe. That's like your barometer of how generative you're being in your life, your creations and all that stuff. Is it giving you energy? Is it expanding, or is it contracting?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I get it. It's maybe also what people would refer to as flow. There's a lot of research on flow and looking at it from that point of view. And it's that thing of, if you just I'm just getting this image of if you push someone on a bike, right, mm-hmm. They're going to go, and then they're going to slow down and they're going to stop. And if you push someone on the bike and then they pedal, even without a lot of effort, as long as they just keep pedaling, it sort of exponentializes the movement and there's more ease, right? So it's that thing of cool, what is actually that generative, it's like this little motor whizzing, this little, whatever that is. So it's fun. So of not just creating a thing and then a dunk and a thing and a dunk. It's actually, what are you creating in a greater sense that is continuing to generate beyond just one small initial. Wow. I actually don't have the words for this, but I see this in a whole different way now that you're talking about it. And it's this you can be in creation all the time, and yet when you also combine it with generation, that kind of gives you even more possibility for creating with more energies and more people, and just with larger scope, even with, and I don't even mean like with time, and I don't mean spatially, but I just mean more expansive. So yeah. So, and then of course also it can be just in energetic terms and also financial. I mean, if in your business, if the energies are generative, then the energies of money can also then be generating in a different way than when you're just starting and stopping and starting and stopping, starting and stopping.
Right, because like financials in a business, a lot of times we're looking at, what do I need? What do I have to do? What problem do I need to solve? What's going to create this from more of a conclusionary point of view? Like, oh, I need to have a website, versus what will actually be generative for my business? What will actually give it more energy? What will actually contribute to the fuel, not just be something I have to pay for?
Yeah. Wow. And how often do we actually kill our creations by resisting that generative, or not following? Like when you said, be aware when you're in those generative states, or when you have this sense that you could go forever, or you have even more energy after, right? Yeah. And so it's that thing of like, are we willing to acknowledge it, perceive it first, acknowledge that it's there, and then are we willing to continue choosing and following those energies? And so for anyone who's listening and hearing you say, I just follow the energy, or I look for the energy of something, this is really what you're talking about, of like, where is it that you are in a space where you just can, you just, wow, yeah, all of this is gone. You're just being, really.
Cool. Yeah. Well, and that's where like all the tools that, you use and I use, of like asking a question of like, hey, like what's possible here? What is it that I came to create? What is it that I came to, be in the world? And inquiring energetically, not looking for the answer. I had a bunch of answers about what I was supposed to do and my purpose, which just led me down to more conclusions. But when I be with the energies of that, I know it is really vague and it's very like, woo, like, because I can't actually give you words for it. It's like you be willing to start perceiving the energies of whatever that is for you, because it's different for everybody.
Yeah. And trying to translate it, it's like all of a sudden perceiving all these different things, and it's like, oh yeah, so how can we actually put this into some sort of just a handle of words for people to be able to now begin to use them. Yeah, begin using them now. Yeah, well, it's interesting too, because like for me, what started to happen was I started becoming aware of the generative energy, but also the lightness. So a lot of what I was choosing before was heavy. It was filled with judgments, conclusions, points of view, all sorts of stuff. Just getting a phone call here. Turn the chat off, but apparently not the phone chat. Okay, so perceiving all this stuff. So my life naturally got better, but I was still sort of scrambling. So even though lighter, I was happier, it was better, I was creating more, I was still sort of on this energetic free-for-all, like at the buffet. So I went from the like $5.99 buffet to the $29.99 buffet, but I was still going, let me just stuff everything in my face, right? I'll have everything, versus really going, what is it actually that I like? Yeah. And really choosing the, the foods, so to speak, that my body's like a real big yes to at the moment. And that's where, like in the Art of Living Crazy Possible, actually cultivate those energies. Like, what are those energies? Instead of chasing the energy around the universe that's light, which could be really fun, and it's usually better than before, really going, what would you like your life to be like? And that's the work that you got to do on yourself, of like, not the priorities of, oh, I got the family and oh, I got the mortgage and all those things, but like your energetic priorities of looking at,
if you could have your whole life be these particular energies, and it's always beyond, it's never a limitation. It's more like let's actually just choose some, like just to choose. Because we as like freaking creatives and unicorns and humanoids or whatever, we want to like everything, right? We don't want to limit it. So, but what I found is that if we actually just choose a few and go, okay, then we have something to work with, right? Where you can go, okay, so I'd like to have like joy. If joy was everything that showed up in my world, everything that I chose had joy, wow, that would be freaking amazing. Like, it's almost unbelievable if joy could actually show up in everything, right? Or if, like, for me, juicy living just has an energy for me. So I started asking, what energy, space, and consciousness can I be to have everything in my life be juicy? And then all of a sudden things started showing up with that energy. So I would say yes every time it would show up. I'd say, okay, great, I just asked for that. Okay, great, what's going to get created with this? But actually cultivating those energies for yourself and choosing them, right? So that those heavy energies, those back doors, those, judgments of ourselves, buying other people's judgments of us, the doubt, all that stuff is a heavier energy. So when you start actually going, no, I'm actually choosing joy, and this doubt is not joy. Okay, great. Doubt out the door. What can I choose today that's joy? What else can I be aware of that'll contribute to my joy? So that's your priority. And when you become so much more focused or putting your attention and energy into the creation energies versus the problem solving, fix myself, dive into the wrongness of me, clear every pattern I've ever had, right? You're going to do that. But if you check this out, so if you, and you probably are, you're already aware of this, but I just love this whole thing. If you go, okay, joy is a priority, the energy of joy.
Yeah.
Not the judgment of how joyful I look, but the energy of joy is my priority. And so you go, okay, great. What can I choose today to have more joy in the world, as my life, in my body, whatever you want to ask? And then what might show up is somebody complaining. You go, oh, that doesn't match my joy. Cool. Clear that out of the way. Now what? So it's like you're climbing the ladder, so to speak, of having more and more and more joy. And then as you're climbing the ladder, there'll be stuff to clear. There'll be things to keep off your ladder, but it's on the way to joy. It's not because you're going in the cesspool of the wrongness of you and everything you think you need to change and fix and all your problems. Yeah. It's actually on your way. So that will actually create the success, so to speak, a lot faster and a lot easier than in the cesspool of the wrongness of you trying to clear all that out.
Yeah. And, I know a lot of people who do that, and I've done this just even with my physical space, and gone through and literally pick everything up and be like, does this bring me joy? Get out of here, or give it away, or, donate it or whatever. And so that when I walk through my space, everything that I look at, it's like, oh, I love you. Oh, hey, it's like everywhere you look, there's a friend there, and it creates this very different space. And so what you're saying is, okay, cool. So are you willing to do that in your physical space? And now would you also be willing to do that with every thought, feeling, emotion, person, opportunity, possibility that comes your way? And not just, react to it, or just, decide that you have to be a certain way with anything, but really just, what is it that you really are here creating? And if it doesn't, if it's not a match, well, okay, cool. But it also doesn't have to be in your world. It can go be in someone else's world, or somewhere else, or nothing at all. So you mentioned that for a long time you were a people pleaser. And then what I'm hearing now is that you might not always be pleasing everyone, because if somebody comes and wants to vomit their story all over you, and that doesn't actually create joy, and you also perceive, there may be a slight joy for them because they get to tell their little vomitous story, but it's actually not contributing to what they're saying they'd like, right? Like how how do you handle that now? And, you know, what has that created for you when you are actually a Cory pleaser and a joy seeker and not going to take other people's vomitous crap? Because
Well, they're gonna right. Well, they're gonna do whatever they do over there. But what's interesting is as you, how do I say this? I want to say as you raise your vibration, and I don't really mean it like a judgment of high, low, good, bad, but as you
become more aware of everything that's available.
And as you choose to be more joy, for example, that's a particular frequency. As you choose to be more juicy, as you choose to be more of you, as you choose to be more of your brilliance, those are different frequencies. When you, and they're more expanded, lighter frequencies on the frequency wave, right? So when you choose doubt, when you choose complaining, when you choose problems, that's just a lower frequency. So one of the natural things that happens is as you are attuning yourself to more of being you, that stuff is not an actual match anymore, because like attracts like. So when you're down on yourself, you're naturally going to attract people who are down on themselves, right? They're going to attract the same judgments of themselves. And when you actually raise your vibration, so to speak, when you are being more of you, you'll actually attract more people that are being them as well. Now, that's not always true because, you know, weeds show up in the garden, so to speak. They're not necessarily weeds for pulling, but acknowledging, oh, I don't do that to myself anymore. Wow, this is just such an interesting story. So I think it's very off-putting for people who want to complain and really are buying their story of problems to be in my space. They do not feel validated at all. And a lot of times I don't even do anything. Because the resonance.
Well, that's the problem. You're supposed to like meet them where they are and, you know, swim in that little pool with them. And you're not doing it. You're so mean.
No, I don't do that anymore. And it's funny because I used to have this really good friend, and you might have seen my post recently, and she unfriended me because we didn't have any problems in common anymore. And she's like, you've just changed so much. And I was like,
thank you.
I'm a totally different person than we used to have all these problems in common. And now I'm actually having what she would judge as success. And I would say I'm actually creating, like I'm living my life in a way that's possible for me. And what else is possible? And anyway, she couldn't handle it. She couldn't handle seeing me actually have the success that she wanted for herself that she wasn't having yet. And so I was like, okay, great. So whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready to be connected on Facebook again, that's great. I just know I adore you. There's nothing in my world that's matching what you're perceiving over there. Like that's yours. Yeah. But the people pleasing thing is interesting because it shows up in so many ways of wanting to belong, wanting people around. And there's been a number of people who have judged, well, this has been happening for a long time, but who judge me, who make stuff up about me, who perpetuate lies, who really misinterpret things and like want to like have an agenda. Yeah. And then people will just completely disconnect. And it's so funny because I used to go, what did I do wrong? How can I fix this? I need to reach out. That was I want to belong. What did I do wrong? Yeah. And that's where I functioned a lot, was in this people pleasing. And I would be like, oh no, somebody unfriended me. What did I do wrong? Was my biggest thing, is I must have been or done something wrong. Yeah. And so when I started to let that go, it was like, oh, that's all their stuff over there, because a lot of these people that judge me or whatever are 3 arms distance away. We never talk. They're not people that are close to me. We're not doing anything together. And most of them have never even been in a class of mine either. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's whatever is going on over there. And I was like, well, what would it take for me to have allowance for other people doing whatever they're doing, even if in their world they have to judge me? Yeah. In their world, they have to separate from me for whatever that is.
Yeah.
Can I actually be an allowance of that?
Before even stumbling onto Access Consciousness, I just adore the book by Don Miguel Ruiz, The 4 Agreements. So simple. And, one of those agreements is don't take anything personally, right? And it really is true. Like anything, like, it's not personal, right? It's really not personal. And anything that comes from someone else to us, we always have the choice of, okay, well, what would we like to be with that? What would we like to do with that? And what if we didn't have to assume that what's being projected on us is actually the only possibility of what's available to us? And so, yeah, having that space of like, oh, okay, so, okay, interesting. So they're having whatever, I'm either reflecting something back, right? What am I mirroring to them? Or what is it that I'm now representing to them that is maybe even showing them something about themselves that they're unwilling to see? You know, how much does that occur, that people don't want to see what they're not choosing, right? How often when someone is successful, do you see that there's this backlash from people? And it's really just because it's so uncomfortable to see someone be successful when they're choosing what you're not willing to choose. So there is this real thing too with, you know, okay, am I I'm asking for success, and am I actually willing to be and do and have what it takes to whatever that success is? I don't really love that word. I really wonder what other word can point to the energy that we're talking about. We'll just keep using it for now. But right, like what is it that, oh, shoot. The train left the station without me. Okay, so success and not being not wanting to be in a position of then being judged by people. And so how often then do we actually step down from what could be creating even greater in the world, whether it's in the business or just in how we're choosing to live our lives, so that other people don't hate us, so that other people don't misunderstand us, so other people don't judge us, so that people don't feel bad about themselves, right? How much do we do that? So like, was it just a magical, was this another one of those magical shifts where you just were like, aha, it's not personal, and I'm just doing me, and everyone else can come if they like, and if they don't, then they don't have to? Or is there more?
I think there's two things to look at with this. First, let's say it this way. When I started having some success, one of the things that actually had, and I'm just going to use success as like momentum. Like, I actually started out creating myself and having things work. Success to me was like, oh, things are actually working here. Like, okay, cool. I'm not pushing a boulder up a hill and not actually going anywhere anymore. Things are actually starting to work here. And one of the things I had to do was let go of bringing everybody with me. And it was actually Gary Douglas. I was having a conversation with him 8 years ago now. And he said, I asked him, I was like, what's the one thing that I could change now that would literally change everything? And he's like, you have to give up this point of view that we all need to go together. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so functioning from let's do it together. I was really great at building communities, so we all do things together. Now, it turns out that's a capacity of mine, but now I do it very differently. But back then it was, let's bring everybody together. Like, come on, like, Rebecca, let's go create this. And you're like, I don't want to create that. I'm like, but come on, let's do it. And you're like, but I don't want to. And I'm like, I'm stopping myself because you don't want to. Yeah. And I didn't realize I was doing that until I let it go. And then things started to move. And that's when I started to receive massive amounts of judgment and gossip and all sorts of stuff. And I was like, that is so interesting that when I'm starting to have momentum and things work for me, that people are judging me instead of giving me a high five. Because in my world, I'm like, high five, let's high five. Like, you rocked it. Like, let's go. Like, I played sports in college, so it's team. So if one person on the team is doing really well, that's good for everybody. That was my mentality. But I started to realize that not everybody functions like that. Other people actually want to judge you and make you wrong and do all these other things. So it's like, oh, that's interesting. So for a long time, I put up a lot of barriers so that I I was just like, I would say, oh, that doesn't matter. Oh, they're judging me, whatever. But really it was a tense barrier to, okay, I'm not going to let this affect me, versus it just doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
Right. It was very different. So that was a lot of years. And it was interesting too, because another layer of this just left in the last like 6 months. But what I actually have it in the modules for the Art of Living Crazy Possible. It's the first one, and it's called The Lie of Belonging. Yeah. And I started to notice in all of my clients, as we're actually stepping into creating and they're out creating everybody, there's this little hook where you get hooked back into wanting to belong. Whether it's wanting to belong to your family, wanting to belong in this reality, trying to fit in, it goes with people pleasing. It's anywhere you think that you belong anywhere. Because the truth is, you don't belong anywhere. Belonging is a lie. Anywhere, even if you're in the Access community, you don't belong there. It's a choice to be there, and it's a choice to be anywhere. You don't belong, but we have this thing like, we got to belong somewhere, and we're like desperately seeking belonging. Yeah. And when we're in that lie, that implant basically, then you'll choose everything that matches I belong or I don't belong. That polarity, which is interesting because there's layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of this one I've found. And even, like I said, even for myself, when I finally unhooked from one recently, I was like, wow, how much have I been trying to fit in with my colleagues?
Oh, yeah.
And really desperately wanting them to like me and not understanding that they didn't. But that was even a secret thing that I was doing to myself, because my barriers would have said, I'm okay, no big deal. Yeah. I put my tough girl panties on and I'm like, I can handle it. But really underneath I was like, well, why am I not getting invited to the parties? Why are they not including me? Like, as that, like, oh, but can't we just play? But it was all coming from wanting to belong, not just like, hey, I'm just going to be me. And those people who have the space for me, who we play really well together, great. If we don't, great. No big deal. There wasn't a total freedom in that. So that one really is, I think, not just a miraculous shift.
Yeah, well, and
awakening.
Yeah, and that is something, I mean, that really does speak to sort of like the core of, at the core of humanity. I mean, we do still have these biological things that are, if we want to be the effect of it, like all of the programming is definitely there, right? Like we're born, I mean, the whole story of you're born, you're helpless. You have to have at least a parent or something that's going to be able to take care of you until you have some ability to fend for yourself, feed yourself, ward off danger, whatever. And there is that thing of like, okay, so I'm either going to be lovable and these people will like me, or this pack of wolves will raise me because they love me, right? Like I must be lovable or else I will die. Like there is that thing. And when we buy that as true, and then we grow up, and even after we have all of the skills and the capacities and the possibilities for creating beyond that, if we're still functioning from some core belief somewhere, then yeah, we're going to constantly try and create a situation in which we feel safe and lovable and like we're going to be okay, when we just really are okay already. And there's, they say there's a butt for every seat, right? Or a lid for every pot. So, it's okay if this is not the pot for you, like you might be the lid for all these other pots. So, allow those pots to find you, the lid. You don't actually have to try and fit on every pot that you find. And that's, I know for me, that's always a process. It's like, oh yeah, I've got that handled. And then some other type of situation shows up where it's like, oh my goodness, this is actually still here. And I wasn't even aware, that it was. So how much do we limit our success? Sometimes when we don't want to when we don't want to be judged, or even we don't want to choose what is it that I'm really jazzed about, and I don't want anyone to really know, even though there's probably a whole slew of people who are just wishing there was something out there that addressed that one little weird thing, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So you were talking about conflictual realities or inner conflict the other day, and I see this so often. And you even talked a little bit about before, like, your agendas and your priorities and what you're choosing or what you're not choosing. And so where we have this, and it's like I want success, but and then it's we're actually not creating in that mode that would be required for that to even really be possible. So we are kind of getting towards the end of our hour, but is there anything that you'd like to say or share or invite people to around that possibility of getting out of any inner conflict or conflictual realities where we're buying something and it's actually limiting us from choosing what we say we'd really like to create?
Yeah, totally. It's interesting. We've hit a lot of different topics in a lot of the different areas in this arena, and most of it we've hit. I actually do. They're all elements of the Art of Living Crazy Possible, which is interesting because we didn't really plan it that way, with the inner conflict and like I say. I say I want to make $10,000 a month, but I watch Netflix instead. Like how to actually resolve that, coming out of this lie of belonging, and when did you actually buy it, and actually becoming resonant with or choosing the life you'd like to be, and then being congruent with that. That's actually the point of Art of Living Crazy Possible, is different tools that actually cultivate that for yourself, right? You get to go to the store, you get to buy the seeds, you cultivate the land, and you actually get to grow it so that your creation is on demand instead of this mysterious sort of thing. It's like, oh, that's how I create. Awesome. Not how anybody else is going to tell you how to create, but how do you actually create?
Or thinking you don't know how to create because the way that you create doesn't look the same as all the other ways you've seen people create already.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, isn't that the truth? Oh my gosh. And that was one of the biggest things I was making myself wrong for, is because I don't do it like anybody else, and like anybody else at all. So at least that I'm aware of. So it's like, if I don't have a reference point outside of myself, then is it right? That's where I used to function from. And that's not there anymore, because I'm like, whatever, I do it my way, and I'm okay with that now. That's probably one of the most things I'm most okay with. Is that. But I think that, like, based on this conversation, the Art of Living Crazy Possible is, if people are like, oh, I want more of that, like, the Art of Living Crazy Possible really encapsulates what we're talking about, and enabling you to go from wherever you are now. If you've got gaps in, like, okay, I'm aware that this is possible, but I'm not quite there yet. If you've got those gaps, then the Art of Living Crazy Possible gives you the tools to actually bridge those gaps over and over and over again to whatever it is you want to create, and sort of build those muscles and the energetic resonance with you actually having everything that you asked for. Like, how cool would that be?
Yeah. Well, oh my gosh. And then what?
Yeah. And then what you're asking for, because you'll get everything that you're asking for right now. And then what? Yeah. Right. So, do you want the link, or do you want to post the link? How does that work?
Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll put all the links in the show notes. So where can people find you? Where can people find the Art of Living Crazy Possible? What are some of the things coming up that you have that people can choose?
Oh my gosh. Okay. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I have a webinar, like a web class, a free web class that actually talks about all of this stuff. So if you're like, oh, I just want more information about that, there's a web class. So we'll put the link in the notes there, and that's free. So you just go and you can watch that. It's about 2 hours. It's really in depth too. So I put a lot of work into that, really cultivating and trying to be as clear as I can about what all this stuff is. And then I have retreats that I'm doing live in a bunch of different places around the world. They're 3 days each. So if you're like, oh my God, I want to come spend time with you, there's those. And there's also an online class that's a 10-week online class that you can do anywhere in the world. And it's It's actually one that we do together. So it's not just a self-study, it's a hybrid of sorts. So there's that as well. That'll be in the links below. So lots of different options. And you can always come and play with me on Facebook if you just search for Cory Michelle.
Yes, and you also have the group of crazy, the art of crazy living, or of crazy living. Oh.
Crazy possible experiment.
That is what I would like to say. And is that open to everyone, or is that open to people once they've engaged with you in some way?
That's open to everybody. You can search it, or we'll put a link down below.
Yep, we'll do that link too. And then of course you have your business page and
yeah, so I'm omnipresent apparently everywhere.
Right. Yes, and it's so fun. You know, you do lots of Facebook Lives, and it's just really, really neat. And anybody who would like more Cory Michelle, she is there for you. She may not please you all the time, but if you let her, she will rock your crazy possible world. And I'm sticking to it. So Cory, is there anything else that you would like to share with people, or that you would like to have as your parting words for today's episode?
Oh, that's such a great question. The first thing that popped was, it's like no matter what you've got going on in your world, every single person on the planet is here and has a contribution, has a gift. And when we start stepping into being willing to be the contribution we came to be, that's where the universe really supports us in creating magic. And so my invitation is, what is that for you? Not from conclusion about trying to figure out what it looks like, but really from the energy of, what did I come to contribute? What did I come to be? That, not even that, just what did I come to be that I can start being now? There we go. That's a great thing.
And if I listened to you, what I got from this whole episode was, you're not looking for words and an answer. When things show up that match this, then are you willing to choose it?
Yeah, choose it. If it matches the energy, doesn't make sense, totally irrational, that's what creates the magic. Every time I choose something that's totally off the wall, like moving to Australia, it's like yeah.
So then what else is possible, right? It's like, who would have thunk that this was possible? And every time we choose, that was in our last episode too, you know, every time you think something just isn't possible, or it's just not even in your world, and then you choose it, and suddenly you can never unchoose it. Like, your world can never really unknow that is possible. And it's just, you know, how much could we keep choosing and expanding our reality and expanding what's possible? And what invitation is that to everyone around us who's like, if they did that, what can I choose? So it's not about making people choose anything, or look at me, I'm choosing this. And yet, like, how cool if just by having the willingness to choose something different, and to choose greater, and to go beyond the doubts, and to go beyond the, this is so scary because it might not please everybody, you know, and all those things, right? Like, what invitation is that for other people to make those courageous choices too, and to show up in whatever way they can. And what gifts have we not unwrapped that we still have, that the world, that all of you get to play with. So I'm excited to keep playing and to see. It's been such a fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been such a fun episode, and you know, Cory, it's been so fun having you in my life, and I really am just so grateful to you. Just knowing that you are out sparkling across the globe gives me lots of happies. So thank you for doing you and being you and showing up. And anyone who doesn't want to friend you on Facebook, they'll have to come talk to me. I'll set them straight. So Thank you so much, Cory, for coming today, and everybody watching. Thank you for co-creating this episode. Thank you for showing up, for watching, for being the gift that you are in the world. And if you did enjoy the episode, please, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please like us on our Facebook page. And if there's anyone that you would like to see, any topics you'd like to discuss, just let us know. And what else can we create together? So thank you so much. Happy choosing. And I wonder what we'll discover next. Bye-bye.